There we go. I haven't turned this camera on for a while. Hi everyone, it's Jennifer McCreath. It is Thursday morning, October 24th, 2013. I'm in the early stages of a little staycation. Booked myself some time off to kind of rest, recover, rejuvenate, think about life and where I want to go with it. And it's been a very interesting week in provincial politics here. As the Newfoundland Labrador New Democratic Party seems to be imploding in a very public way. We've seen a letter written by 4 caucus members to their 5th and leader caucus member requesting a leadership review, and this letter was leaked out to the media by somebody, and it has just led to a complete collapse of this party, as members are now criticizing each other, accusing each other, blaming each other, ultimately looking like fools. And I just thought it would be an interesting, I hate to say I told you so, but I joined the NDP, I believe it was May 2nd, 2011, federally and provincially. I've got a cat stepping on my light here, so bear with me. No cat. There we go. How's that? I caught the wave. I caught the Jack Layton wave back in 2011. I liked what I heard. I was excited about his vision, his ideas, his respect, his professionalism. I voted for the federal and provincial. That's part of the story. I joined the provincial NDP at the same time I joined the federal NDP, and shortly after the federal election, there was plans to launch campaigning for the provincial election. One of the first things I did was seek out the district association for the riding which I lived in, St. John's North. And at that time, a gentleman at the time who was party president named Dale Kirby put a call out looking for people to help come to the table and form a riding association for St. John's North for the NDP, who would hold a mandate of finding a candidate to run in the upcoming provincial election. Well, I had a very interesting meeting with Mr. Kirby, and it didn't take me very long to figure out that, in my opinion, this guy's goal was not necessarily to find the best candidate or a candidate for that riding. His goal, in my opinion, was to make sure he was the candidate for that riding, and that's exactly what ended up happening. June 29th of 2011, there was a meeting held to formalize and create or recreate an official district association for St. John's North. And I attended the meeting, and I was actually voted to the executive of that committee as secretary by, I guess you'd have to say, my peers, although most of the people in that room were people I'd never met before. But so there you were. There I was part of this district association in one of the top 4 seats, interestingly enough. And on we went, supposedly, the great search to find the candidate to run for us. Well, bottom line is, even though I was part of that executive, there wasn't a lot of work for me. There was very little communication or engagement. Didn't take long before Dale Kirby was deemed the one and only candidate. And fine. That was... Bottom line is the guy won his seat, so ultimately the team was successful. But from that moment, I kind of took a step back. I played no role in fundraising or campaigning for Mr. Kirby. I kind of played the card that I'm busy, I've got other things to do. Secretary to me, it's a slap in the face. Here was someone with my credentials coming to the table, and all they wanted me to do was take minutes at their executive meetings. And there weren't very many executive meetings. I was on that committee for 13 months. I think we met twice, maybe 3 times, just to give you an idea of that. But yeah, anyway, let's move forward. I guess you could say very early on I became concerned and kind of started to realize that the NDP probably was not the right place for me to be. Those fears would be magnified in 2012 when both provincially and federally we saw the NDP take steps to attempt to demonstrate interest in transgender issues, when in fact I felt they were throwing us under the bus and paying lip service to us. It's the straws that broke the camel's back. Federally, Bill C-279 was created initially to provide human rights protections for members of the trans community. However, the NDP watered the bill down when they realized that the Conservatives were going to vote against it. Against advice from most trans people, they came up with a watered-down bill that would actually cause more harm to us. And I was quite concerned about that. By this time, I had organized and created a couple of trans entities that existed, the East Coast Trans Alliance.org and NPATH.net, Newfoundland Patient Association for Transsexual Health. I also launched grassroots movement, TCAC279.org, Trans Canadians Against Bill C-279. Danny Morin, federal MP in a Quebec riding for the NDP, who's, along with Randall Garrison, were assigned LGBT portfolios. Danny was going to be in town here in St. John's, Newfoundland, and he had reached out to me and others looking to meet with members of the trans community, and I organized a meeting with him, and very interestingly enough, Gerry Rogers, provincial MHA, somehow found out about this private meeting and made it known that she would like to attend, and I politely had to ask her, no, this is not a provincial meeting, it's not even an NDP meeting, it's a private meeting between myself, Danny Morin, and members of the trans community. And said, sorry Gerry, there are certain trans people who are in the closet here who would not come to this meeting if they know you and other gay lesbian activists would be there. No secret, there's been problems between the gay and the trans here in St. John's. So she gave me her word, fine, I won't show up. Guess what? Gerry Rogers does show up. She crashed the meeting. She violated the privacy and confidence of trans people, and that was the final straw that really broke the camel's back. It was the very next day that I announced my resignation from both provincial and federal NDP parties. To make matters worse, following up in November, Gerry reached out to me, interestingly enough, for feedback on a piece she was doing for Question Period surrounding transgender human rights and the Transgender Day of Remembrance. And I was actually quite pleased, given that I had left the NDP, that she would take an interest and reach out to me. We had a lovely 2-hour chat about the type of questions she could ask the government in the House. One would be about the Human Rights Code itself, and another one would be about the lack of health care. However, she took a twist in that speech, and rather than take note of the great trans organizations that were out there, she paid lip service to the trans community and started hyping up how great all these gay lesbian organizations were. Many of those gay lesbian organizations are organizations who I feel have done damage to the trans community. So ultimately I was quite upset with that. Follow up to January of this year, 2013, representing NPATH, myself and a colleague of mine attended a conference you all may recall called Ovations, organized by Kathy Thunderdale. And Gerry approached me talking about some event she was organizing, saying, since there are no trans organizations out there, Jennifer, I'd like to invite you as an individual to come to some event. Totally disrespecting the existence of empath. Not only that, I was actually wearing a name tag on my sweater, demonstrating not only was I attending the event, but I was there as a empath representative, as was my colleagues. So, just another example of the lack of respect Gerry Rogers seems to have for me in the trans community. I gotta be honest. Gerry and I think we both fight a lot of good causes. We try to work together, but there's just something there. She doesn't trust me. I don't trust her. I don't like her. And as long as she's a member of the NDP, that's a party I will never rejoin. Might as well put it right out there. Gerry, you were one of the 4 people that wrote this nasty letter to Lorraine Michael and suggested that she resign and run a leadership convention, and then you turn around and try to deny that you signed it, or the way you were whining basically to the media, saying it was a misunderstanding. You damn well knew what you wrote. My understanding is you're the one that actually clicked send on that email. Everyone's commenting on I guess the things all these MAJs are saying. At least Dale Kirby has the guts to stand his ground and say, in his opinion, this is what's needed. He sought advice on how to best communicate this. I mean, I was never part of the executive of the NDP, so I can't speak to a lot about what went on behind those closed doors. I will say this, I've known Lorraine Michael probably for 5 years. I've confided in her. When I lost my job shortly after I came out as a transgender person, one of the first people I met with to discuss and get advice from was Lorraine Michael. And we had a lovely discussion that lasted, I believe, more than half an hour. She earned my trust and respect as a person and as someone who I think genuinely cares about everybody. There's not one bad bone in Lorraine Michael's body. Having said that, the NDP has lost badly in the last couple of elections, and it's certainly understandable to expect a leadership review. One of my biggest concerns in about that 2011 provincial election was, in my opinion, the NDP paid way too much attention trying to win seats at St. John's, and practically little effort to reach out and win seats outside of the city. And that obviously showed in the election results. They got 4 out of the 7 St. John's seats, but they only got 1 out of all the remaining other seats. Furthermore, they were celebrating it as if they didn't care. We won 5 seats. We got 4 seats in St. John's. We finished in 3rd place. That was to me, send a strong message. I mean, they didn't even have candidates lined up till the last minute in a lot of these ridings. The NDP clearly has no presence or inroads in rural Newfoundland. They parachuted in 4 or 5 candidates at the last minute, people from St. John's, just to run in ridings so they could say that they ran a candidate in every riding. George Murphy, don't know him well, seems like a good guy. Same time, George, you signed that letter, and you're crying on CBC radio. I don't think it's going to do you any favors. You're a good guy. I'm sure you're a great taxi driver, and you're good at analyzing gas prices. Maybe politics isn't where you belong. Maybe you should consider another career path. You're not nasty enough to be a politician. You're not cunning, conniving, or devious enough to be a politician. Now, Gerry and Dale, they're nasty, in my opinion. They're sleazy, slimy snakes, and politics is exactly where they belong. Chris Mitchellmore, don't really know him too well. I've thought he's done a great job so far, and I have no problem with him asking Lorraine for a leadership review, and I'm glad to see that he's standing by his statement. I'll say this, at least him and Dale have credibility here, where the other 2 are kind of demonstrating that they're spineless cockroaches. They're not sorry, they're just sorry that they got caught. ultimately, whoever leaked this letter, that's another thing. This letter was never intended to go public. Somebody leaked it to the media. I think that person should stand up and admit to doing this. There's obviously some sort of rat in that party, whether it's one of the four, or whether it was Lorraine, or I think the party president was involved, or it could be worse. If someone else somehow hacked into an account they weren't supposed to. Ultimately, though, I think it's a fair question to ask. Renewal and revitalization of political parties is critical. You can't just keep the same leader in there year after year, election after election. The NDP did lose badly. Sure, they went from 1 seat to 5 seats, but you lost and you finished in 3rd place. Even the Liberals, who were supposedly dead and buried, they weren't going to get any seats. They ended up getting 6. I can't comment on Lorraine's leadership style. I know there's a lot of people that say it's my way or the highway or whatever. I mean, have that convention. And George and Gerry, if you think Lorraine's the right person to lead this party, good for you. I agree. I agree with the letter, quite frankly. Maybe not necessarily the delivery, but I think it's a great idea for the NDP to hold a leadership review. It's a chance to demonstrate, perhaps, that Lorraine still is indeed the right leader. Or maybe there's an opportunity for someone else to step up to the plate. Dale Kirby says he does not want to be the leader. I don't believe you, Dale. I think you do want to be the leader. I think you're a power-hungry person, in my opinion. I think you do want to be a leader of that party or any political party. That's my personal opinion, just based on what I know about you. It's no secret that I just ran in a municipal election as an independent. There's no political parties in the municipal, but we're going to lose our battery. Be right back.